So something I was thinking about the other day is that I'm very rarely bored enough to be creative. What does that actually mean? It means that if you're constantly distracted by things on your phone, by TV, by things in the news, that you don't actually allow yourself to just sit and be bored. Being bored and being in the state of boredom is where creativity is found. And I've realized that since taking a break from making vlogs. Like, I'm still putting them out consistently, but I've gotten far enough ahead of myself to where I can actually just sit and think and try to be creative. Which made me start to think a little bit about this whole vlogging process and sort of the evolution that I've gone through over the month or so that I've been vlogging. The first thing that I'll say is I love vlogging. I love that I can just turn on a camera, start talking to it to share my thoughts and my opinions and my viewpoint on things, while also trying to make it engaging with supplemental B-roll and storytelling and all that good stuff. Like, just talking to the camera can be really boring. Trying to fill it in with some more interesting stuff is where it gets challenging, but that challenge is fun and I look forward to that challenge. Also, I totally didn't mention that I didn't want to shave my beard. So the last video I made, I had like a full-on beard and I was trying to trim it down because it was getting a little too long the other day, and I totally like nicked this area where it went further than I wanted it to go, and because it was so short and it was such a big area, I basically couldn't leave it that way because it was just so obvious that I had missed something. So I had to shave it down to this length. And one of the things I've realized through making these vlogs more consistently is, one, I waited way too long to start my vlog. And it was because I thought that I had to create it in a certain way. Until I came across a creator who showed me that your daily life can be interesting enough if you edit appropriately, and that you don't need to be doing interesting things all the time. I mean, don't get me wrong, that certainly helps. But there are things in your daily life that you can take out and create a story around, especially visually. The second thing I realized is that the majority, if not the entirety of your story, of your vlog, is made in the edit. I can't tell you how many times in the beginning I said, you know what, I'm just gonna take 5-second clips from different points in my day and try to create a story with that, thinking that I would have no way to do that, and I created vlogs that I really enjoyed not only creating but also making and showing and putting on YouTube. So it goes to show that you're probably overthinking your vlog. If you haven't gotten started with one and maybe you're watching this one, you're probably overthinking and over planning what your vlog needs to be. If I had to go back a month from now, I would have just started documenting my day, trying to figure out how to make a story out of that, and then practice that over time. The second thing that I've really realized is it's more important to show than it is to tell. Like, if I tell you everything that I'm doing throughout the day and then show you, that's not as bad, but I've realized that just showing leaves the viewer open to trying to interpret what's going to happen, which is a natural way to engage your audience. Now, I'm not saying I'm an expert at this. Like, this isn't coming from lots of experience. It's just I want to document what I'm experiencing in real time so that when I'm creating it, I can look back on it and go, okay, this is how far I've come. Like, I started here, this is where I'm at now. And then the third point, sort of what I started with in the beginning, is being bored enough to create. So often looking for external inspiration. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're constantly looking for inspiration, but you're not tapping into your own vision of what you want to create, then there's a mismatch. And I'm a true believer that everything in life is balanced. It might not always feel that way or seem that way, but there's a constant ebb and flow to things. So if you're constantly looking for external motivation, but you're not balancing that out with spending time just being bored and being creative in that respect, then you're not getting the benefits of both. If you spend too much time in one camp, then you become limited in your perspective of what's going on in life. And that's true with pretty much everything in life. If you tend to hone in on a very specific perspective and not try to be as well-rounded as you can, you typically lose, and in losing that perspective, it usually leads to anxiety, at least for me. Maybe that's just something that I deal with, but yeah, so that has been an interesting avenue to have gone down simply by creating more and more of these vlog type videos. I also think that vlogging is sort of a natural way to create content for myself. In the beginning, the way that I was creating content was the sole purpose of educating and informing people, and that's because I took it and started it from a business standpoint, and that's what I do full time. Is I do social media management as well as a myriad of other things for marketing in my full-time job. And I got really tired of making content for the sole purpose of it being information, and I wanted to start creating more content purely be enjoyable and creative and unbound. Because when you work in social media and when you do it for business purposes, it's typically bound to certain constraints, and I never wanted to feel constrained in the content that I made personally for myself, because I'm a very naturally creative person. In fact, the way I like to think about it is, if I don't get to do something creative every day, I typically and very easily get depressed. It's sort of like, I don't know a good analogy. I guess it's sort of like eating, right? Like if you go too long without eating, you get really irritable and grumpy and hangry. That would be me with creative expression. And it doesn't even have to be this elaborate project. Like literally after work yesterday, I was editing a video, and just the act of editing and creating and piecing together was fun and enjoyable, even though it was technically work. Like it was time that I was spending doing something that felt more like work than a hobby, but to each their own on that respect.